Anybody want to buy an ESC? What's up guys, welcome back to the channel. Thanks for tuning in today. You see I got the no prep car on the bench again today with the fresh DE racing tires we installed in the last video. Today I got some soldering equipment out. Wonder what that could be for. Okay, let's stop kidding around. You've seen the title and the intro. We're putting the Tekin RS Pro Black Edition in my no prep car today. In a past video, I touched a little on why I wanted to switch to the Tekin ESC. But before we start soldering, I want to actually show you what I was talking about. So I got my SMC 2S LiPo in the car here, got my Graupner X8E radio, and I'm going to power it on and turn the car on. You probably hear the fan right away, and I really like that fan, but I'm willing to sacrifice it. Let's see why. I'm bringing up my phone here and opening up the Hobbywing app. It's really easy to connect and probably one of my favorite features of the whole system. Just tap the button at the top there and it should load up the ESC. You can see I'm connected by the flashing icon. We can come to parameters here and click on the modified tab, which is what I tuned under. And after a few seconds, it'll load up the settings. You can do a lot of tuning here, stuff like throttle rate, softening values, boost, turbo, all of that great stuff. The problem is when you come back to the beginning and go to data record. In data record, we come to cars and this is all the information it gives me. Let's try to get that in focus so you can see here. I get max ESC temp, max motor temp, minimum battery voltage, max motor RPM, the ESC model, the firmware I'm running, and the profile I'm running under, and that's it. Nothing else. I can't see throttle position. I can't see where the motor is dropping RPMs or how fast it's getting to this max RPM. You know, this particular pass says I got up to 55, almost 56,000 RPMs, but I don't know if that was during the burnout at the top end of the track or right at the hit. I don't have any way to find that out. I looked into the programming card to actually connect it to a PC, and I was told by Hobbywing that the capabilities that I was looking for, like the graphs that are available with the Tekin and Castle data logging, wasn't possible with their current hardware. Being that I am sort of familiar with tuning with the Castle ESC since that's what I started with, and I also dabbled a little bit with a Tekin ESC in the past, I really wanted to get back to being able to use the data graphs to tune, which is where the RS Pro Black Edition comes in. Now the one downside to the RS Pro is it doesn't have a fan like the XR10 that you can hear over here. In the South Louisiana heat, I was really worried about this. But when I'm tuning or racing, most of the time I'll make one or two hits and come back and look at the data. So that'll give the car time to cool down. For now, I'm not going to get the newest version of the hot wire. I'll just use the older one that I actually have already that connects to the laptop. Maybe later on I'll look into picking up the Bluetooth version to be able to make changes through my phone. But for now, I'm fine with using the laptop. It's time to get the XR10 out of here and we can start installing the RS Pro. Let's go ahead and get this unboxed now and see what's inside. We have some motor wires as well as the hot wire connection wire. Some double-sided tape as well as the all-important capacitor, a couple notes in the manual, and some stickers. And of course, the ESC itself. Now that we have it out the package, it's very similar to the XR10 in size. About what and what, obviously not as tall, but size-wise they're about the same. It's probably a little lighter than the Hobbywing, but not by much. One thing that's really important is this capacitor. Ty explains really well why it's so important in the Tekin video where he installed this ESC in his drag car. It needs to be soldered directly to the battery post on the ESC. I got the soldering iron heating up, so let's start soldering some wires onto this thing. I cut out the center section here in the chassis cradle, so now I can run the battery long ways instead of sideways. It should give me more options like running a full size pack if I wanted to, with more capacity. Now we just need to decide where I want to run the motor wires. And now that I'm looking at it, I think I'm going to run them on the opposite side. The ESC can be mounted here, and then the receiver will go here. Let's knock that out. Before we actually put the ESC in the car, I'm going to solder on the battery connector, which means the capacitor has to go on first. I bent the lead so that the capacitor will fit nicely on top of the ESC. So now I can solder it in. I'm using an XT90 connector since that's what I run in just about all of my cars. I made it pretty short because of where it'll be in the car. And after pre-tinning the wires, it's quick and easy to attach to the ESC. Now laying everything out in the car to see how long the wires need to be. I'll leave a little slack so nothing is super tight and just chop off the excess. I think now's a good time to tape down the ESC with the supplied double-sided tape. I always have trouble with the backing on this stuff, no matter what brand it is or where it comes from. It looks like everything is in place, none of the wires are too tight, and everything should reach. So let's solder on the motor wires. I got everything back in the car and everything's plugged up, ready to go, but I gotta be honest. I'm not satisfied with the wiring job I did here. When I first put the motor wires in, I thought everything was looking great. But when I started to put everything else in, well, the battery barely even fits. It actually hits the motor wires. I think I'll order some more wires and a longer sensor wire and redo the whole car. Even shortening the ESC and servo wires going to the receiver to clean it all up a bit more. But for now, I don't want to leave you hanging for this video. I'm going to plug up to the ESC, make sure it's on the latest firmware, and then we'll go make a couple of hits. Damn it, I hate to be the one to disappoint, but you aren't going to see any running footage today. It's a few days later now, and you can see I tidied up all the wiring a bit. I realized I could put the ESC behind the battery with a little trimming to the chassis cradle. It shortened up the wires a lot, and although I did have to make the battery leads a little longer, it's a lot cleaner. I do need to find a better spot for the hot wire cable and the on-off switch, but other than that, I'm quite happy with the wiring now. My problems came in when doing a few test hits before turning on the camera. I knew I'd have to do a little tuning and change the gearing to get it to launch straight, so I went out and made about 3 or 4 passes before I was ready to record a few hits. Side note, I almost forgot, I swapped in the clay compound DE racing tires after a lot of you commented on how well they work. From what I understand, the soft compound will be better when it gets cooler and not crazy hot like it is right now. Back to the ESC, I made 2 passes and I noticed it was way over geared. I found an 18-tooth pinion, so I threw it in and went outside, did the burnout, and when I went to launch, it left but didn't accelerate hard at all. I tried to bring it back to me and the car wouldn't move at all. I figured maybe the ESC overheated. Although I was only making 1 to 2 passes and then letting the car cool down, I figured, hey, it's hot outside, it may be overheated. The ESC was only about 114 degrees or something like that when I shot it, which really isn't that hot at all. I played with a few settings in ESC trying to figure out the problem, until I bumped the car while applying throttle. It started rolling, sort of jittery, but it was moving. I figured maybe the motor needed to be shimmed. After pulling the motor apart, it turns out it was shimmed pretty well already. The rotor passes really close to the sensors without rubbing and everything looked fine. After trying and coming up with nothing again, I saw something different while troubleshooting. Some of you who have messed with the Tekin ESCs before might know what those 4 flashing lights mean. Basically, those lights mean there's a short in the motor wires, the motor, or the ESC. I checked out the wires and they all seem to be spaced out enough, and I even have heat shrink on the ESC wires, so I know they aren't shorting. I thought the sensor wire could be damaged and replaced it completely, but still ran into the same problem. The only explanation I have now is the motor has to be fried. Maybe the rotor wasn't close enough to the sensors in the motor. I was told some people have trouble with that with this ESC. Even though I checked that, it's the only thing I could guess that would have fried the motor. I've started to look for a new motor, but maybe one of you have ran into this before and tell me about something I'm missing and there's nothing wrong with this motor. In the meantime, I want to finish cleaning up these wires, like I talked about with the on-off switch and the hot wire cable. Once again, I apologize. I didn't want to disappoint. I wanted to get you some running footage today, but it's just not going to happen. The good news is the ESC makes a lot of power, and in the 3 or 4 hits I was able to make, I was able to look at the data and pinpoint right away what the problem was and try to correct it. Hopefully sometime soon I'll actually be able to correct it and see what it'll do. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed the video. I'm sorry it had to end on a disappointing note like this, but leave a like if you enjoyed anyway. Once again, comment down below what you think the problem could be. Maybe I'm missing something else. Subscribe to the channel to follow along with this car and my other projects. I have something in the works, but it's taking a little while. Hopefully I can update you on that soon. Make sure to click the bell icon to get notified when I upload new videos. And as always, thanks again for watching. Peace.